So thank you guys for taking the time out to join us for this webinar. Summer is approaching. We're all very desperate for pools to reopen, and I know as a member, I am really desperate for to go back to the pools. To take a dip in the pools in the scorching summer heat. There's nothing more that I look forward to. But as pool managers, I'm sure reopening the pools comes with its own set of challenges, right? Especially now, even though we're a little into the pandemic, the threat hasn't still entirely faded away. We're still living under the threat of a virus. So it is still essential to make sure that we do everything in our capacity to make the experience of using the pools as safe and as seamless for our members as possible. And that's exactly why we're all here today, to understand how we can limit capacity in our pools using Omnify's reservation system. So let's begin with the webinar. Right, so my name is Shreya Ganesh. I am the Product Marketing Associate at Omnify. I will be hosting this webinar, and hosting this webinar alongside me is Moinak. Moinak is the Business Development Manager, but also the Product Expert. So apart from me and Moinak, our entire team of Omnify is behind the scenes. So at any point of time, if you have any questions, any queries, feel free to write it down in the chat. Our team is there to answer your questions. At the end of the session also, we will have a Q&A round, so we will pick your questions and answer them live at the end of the session. However, if we happen to miss answering a couple of questions, we will get back to you. Don't worry about that. You can drop in a mail to us. Our email IDs are on the screen, mine and Moinak's. If not, you can drop in a mail to hello@getomnify.com, and we will surely get back to you. Now, before we begin, I want to introduce Omnify to one and all. So, Omnify is a one-stop solution for amenity reservation. Oh, sorry, this slide just went back. But we're a one-stop solution for amenity reservation, member management, and service e-commerce. We streamline all aspects of business, be it scheduling, membership, subscriptions, communications, and so much more. We work across industries, so we work with parks and rec facilities, we work with fitness centers, we work in the education sector, and so on and so forth. Last year in 2020, I was just talking about it a minute ago, how the pandemic 2020 was a year that none of us have ever experienced before, right? We didn't know what to do. The pandemic was so new to us. It was so difficult to navigate through all of the new regulations and rules that were put into place. But Omnify's system enabled over 1,000 properties to reopen their facilities and pools and every other amenity in the safest manner possible. The CEO of Pool Management Group, Jim Fraser, once in conversation with Omnify, mentioned that it was a real question whether or not pools would reopen in 2020 because of the pandemic. But with Omnify and Omnify's system, there was a real trust that it's actually possible to reopen the pools. Public health authorities could genuinely believe that using a reservation platform, it was possible to reopen pools and give every member of the community, an enjoyable summer. And that's exactly what Omnify also stands for. So before we go into the agenda of the webinar, I want to quickly pose a question to all of you. I would like to post a poll. I want to know, were you able to open your pools last year? I'm going to launch a poll right now, and I would love all of y'all to answer the poll. Let me know if you were able to open your pool last year or not. Okay, we're getting a lot of responses. So the stats show that 56% of y'all were not able to reopen the pool last year, and there was a report that came out that I remember reading, that only 7% of the pools were actually able to function properly with all the safety precautions in place last year, whereas over 40% of the pools and other properties with their amenities just failed to reopen in the safest manner possible. And that's where Omnify comes in. I would also, okay. So having said that, Let's move on to the agenda of the webinar. Today, we're going to tackle 4 problems. We're going to tackle how limited capacity can be ensured, how we can track check-ins, how we can ensure fair and equal access to pools, and how we can manage memberships. And for that, Moinak's the best person. So Moinak, why don't you take over from here?
Hey Shreya, thank you for the introduction. I'm Moinak and I am a product specialist here at Omnify, and I am here to walk you through all the solutions as well as the problems that you guys are facing. So just to set the right context here, this webinar, I intend to keep it absolutely interactive. So I would love to know at every point what you guys feel, what you guys think, so that I can go through my flow accordingly and I could address your concerns. So to start off with, to give you an idea, we've been working very closely with a lot of communities, and we've helped a lot of communities open with best practices. So people have found really innovative solutions to go about tackling the pandemic and reopening their pools. And definitely using technology has been one of the approaches. So if you manage a pool and have been struggling to limit capacity within, say yes in the chat. That will help me understand how many of you had the challenges, and I'm sure these were the challenges, or challenges were around these agendas that I'm going to discuss today. So yeah, please go ahead, say yes or no in the chat accordingly. I can see that a lot of people did face challenges and were not able to open as well, but what we saw earlier in the poll that Shreya presented. So I'm sure this webinar is going to be a game changer for you. Let's say you solve the problem of limiting capacity, but what about the huge queue that was outside your pools last season or outside your facilities last season? How do you manage that? How do you let people in with the safety precautions? How do you check them in into their facilities? This is the second problem. So to break it down, I feel personally that these are the 4 problems that you see on your screen. How can you limit capacity? How can you track check-ins? How do you ensure fair and equal usage into your pools? And how do you manage memberships? So to start off with, the first problem, how can limited capacity be ensured? So over the period of last 1.5 years, I've spoken to community managers who were unsure if they're going back to the normal, or if what the situation today is the new normal and we should accept it or not. So in both cases, the real challenge was around the SOPs to follow. So if your state has issued a mandate around how many members you can allow within the pool in a given block of time, and also ensure social distancing, then limiting capacity is the only way. I'm sure using a pen and paper is the first thing that comes to your mind. And trust me, a lot of people did decide to go that route. However, let's imagine that you do it on a daily basis and you have about, let's say, 8 blocks of time or 10 blocks of time to handle on a day. So you could be like Bob. You can look at Bob here in the picture. Bob is enjoying his cup of coffee and he's letting the system do all of it. He's letting everything automate. And that's what Omnify can do. So to show how we tackle the limiting capacity with the reservation system, let me show you a flow. So this is basically how a reservation system's service store looks like, or this is where you would list down your slots for your residents to book into. What I have in front of me is I have an entire schedule, and this could be a daily schedule or a weekly schedule. And you just need to set up the schedule once for your entire season. And now your residents can actually go in and book into slots. So what I have done is I have multiple amenities in my multiple facilities in my amenity. So you can see I have a rec center, I have a tennis court, I have pools, and I have a community center. So now let's talk about pools specifically, since our topic is around pools today. So what I've done is I have created multiple blocks of time for pools. So these are all 1.5 hour duration blocks of time. And I've set a 50 people capacity for each block. Also, what I've done is I've added a 30-minute buffer time between 2 blocks. So this buffer time can be used for cleaning or disinfecting the pool. Now, let's say as a resident, I want to book into pool time 6 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. All I need to do is click on reserve here. Once I do that, I can see a 7-day window in front of me. This is a booking window. A booking window is essentially how many days prior do you want to allow taking reservations inside your pool. Sorry. Yeah. And this window is absolutely customizable as well. You can go for a 1-day window, a 7-day window, a month-long window, whatever works for you. And I personally feel that a 7-day window is the best practice, having spoken to over like 500 communities over the last 1.5 years. And that's why I have gone with a 7-day booking window. Now, let's say I want to book Friday 6 a.m. There are 50 spots available. This is dynamic. So whenever someone books into these slots, the number keeps going down. And I will select this slot. Also, what I want to do is I want to go into the pool with my family members. In that case, I'll just select family here and move to the next step, where I can just quickly add my family members into the reservation. So I want to go into the pool with Moinak Jr. and Cindy Hawkins. So I'll just add them to the reservation and move on to the next step. The next step is a pre-COVID declaration form. This declaration form is something that is optional, or you can make it a mandatory field from an admin side. And if it's a mandatory field, the residents have to fill this every time they're making a reservation. And these details are stored inside their profile. So let me just fill this up, and so that I can move to the next step. Now I have filled up the form. Next thing is a liability waiver. So this liability waiver is absolutely customizable. So you can change the wordings of this waiver, and you can also upload a custom waiver in case you have a waiver drawn already. The resident have to agree upon the waiver every time they make this reservation. They have to click on accept, and only then they can go ahead and make a reservation. This is a review booking page. I am making a reservation for 3 attendees for 21st May. I've accepted the liability waiver. I can just click on confirm. And yeah, that's essentially how a booking flow works from a resident's point of view. This is how I have booked into a block of time with limited capacity. And I have an option to add this reservation to my calendar really quick in case I want to be notified before the slot. Also, every resident has their own profile where they can see their upcoming slots as well as their past slots. And in case someone needs to cancel the reservation, they can actually go ahead, click on details and cancel the reservation. They have an option to cancel for family members or for like themselves or whatever box. So yes, that's essentially how the booking flow works from a resident's point of view. Now, this is how Bob manages to limit capacity while putting in less effort. So you can be like Bob. Yeah. So that brings us to our next problem, which is problem number 2. So we've solved problem number 1. Let's look at problem number 2. How do you track check-ins? You can see this is something that could happen in case you don't have a system to track check-ins. People will queue up in outside your pool, and that will just result into chaos. And you don't want that. It's social distancing is imperative. You don't want to have this chaos. So to manage this, to not have this huge queue outside your pool, what you can do is we have a check-ins dashboard. Also, to make it easier, this chaos can also be resolved by a contactless check-in model where you don't need anyone to do it, anyone to check people in into the pool. So I'll show you both the flows. First of all, in case you have a front desk staff at the pool, and in case you have a pool monitor at the pool, then whenever your resident comes in, you have a check-ins dashboard, a dedicated check-ins dashboard here, where whenever your residents are coming in, your front desk staff can see the list of slots that are available for the day, the people who are signed up for each of these slots. And whenever, let's say, John Doe has walked into my pool, so I can just click on check-in for John Doe, and the check-in will be marked with a timestamp. So this is one way to mark check-ins, and this data is always exportable. So you can export this data, run analytics, see which slots has most number of people who are actually coming in. So this view can be managed on any computer, laptop, any mobile device, any device, to be honest. Now, to make this easier and to allow the residents to self check-in, we actually have a QR check-in model where you as an admin have an option to print these QR codes and have these at the front desk, where whenever your resident walks in, they can just take out their mobile phone, open the camera, and scan these QR codes. That way, the residents can self check-in, and this reduces the contact. This way the residents can check themselves into their pool slots. So yes, that's how we handle check-ins, and that's how you can ensure that you never have this queue outside your pool and everything goes in order. Now, to go ahead, this is how we tackle problem number 2. Let's look at problem number 3. So how do you ensure fair and equal usage inside your pool? What I understood after having a conversation with a lot of pool managers and even some pool monitors is there are a lot of people in every property, every HOA or every community who would just go in and book, let's say 7 p.m. every day of the week. You know what that does? That leads into something like this. You can't take up all the slots for yourself. We saw something like this that happened last year where people hoarded on toilet paper, something as basic as toilet papers. So to ensure that there's equal and fair usage, everyone gets the chance to book into their desired pool slots. We have a way to handle this, but before we get to that, how about you guys tell me in chat if you faced a situation like this in the past, where your residents are holding up on pool slots or just booking for the entire day and not letting someone else book into a pool slot. So if this is something that has happened in the past, say yes in the chat. Otherwise, you can just say no. Awesome. Seems like this is a real concern. So we are on track so far. Problem number 3 also goes with your problems, and that's great. So to resolve this issue, to solve this issue, we have something which we call booking restrictions. So with booking restrictions, what happens is you can define how many slots is one resident allowed to book on a daily basis or a weekly basis or a monthly basis, and you can also define if this restriction applies to every individual of the family or if it applies to the family as a whole. So with this was a very requested feature last season, and that's why we love to work with the customers and we were quick to build this. And also to add to this, we are coming up with another feature around this which would allow you to set restrictions around multiple slots. So let's say, for example, you have a pool and you also have a tennis court inside your community. You want to set different restrictions for the pool and a different restriction for the tennis court. So the multiple booking restrictions that we are launching in a couple of weeks will help you resolve this, will help you tackle this situation. So yes, that's how we tackle problem number 3 with our advanced pool time booking restrictions. And yes, this is something that we do not want to happen, and we will make sure that this does not happen. Now that brings us to our fourth problem, which is how do you manage your memberships? So, do you, for before we get into how do you manage memberships, would love to understand really quick how many of you are planning to allow residents to bring in guests this season, or how many allowed guests last season? Um, Again, if you are planning to allow guests, say yes in the chat. Else, you can say no. Okay, so there is a mix of people saying yes and people saying no. So yes, you, in case you do allow your guests to, like, in case you allow your residents to bring guests, how do you ensure that the guests are allowed to book into the slot, or how can you take guest bookings? So you can actually create these daily passes using memberships. With daily passes, what happens is a guest can only book for a day or two, or like however long the guest is staying there, and that's how you can allow guest bookings. Now, when it comes to members, you would want to ensure that only the members of your community are allowed to book into these slots. Someone who's not a member, someone who's not a part of your HOA or your community, should not be able to book into any of these pool slots. In that case, you need to apply a members only, a strict check on members only booking. So to ensure that is something that we tackle in the reservation system, we have a specific section or service called memberships, where whenever your members are added into the system, whenever your residents are added into the system, they are automatically marked as members. Now, when it comes to reservations, so someone who's not a member, sorry. So we have members benefit and members only access. With this, what we ensure is someone who's a non-member, if they try to book into any pool slot, their reservation is automatically stopped by the system. The system has a hard check on if you are a member or if you're not a member. If you're not a member, you will not be able to book into any of these pool slots unless the admin allows you to. While if you're a member, you can seamlessly go ahead and take a booking. So this is the way how you can ensure that only the members of your HOA or only your residents are allowed to book into these pool slots. And yes, that's how we manage. That's how you manage memberships, and that's how Omnify helps you to manage memberships. And yes, these were the four problems. To give you a quick recap, there's how to limit capacity, how to track check-ins, how do you ensure fair and equal usage in your pool, and how do you manage memberships. So this is how we tackle the four problems, the four basic fundamental problems that we've researched upon. And to sum this up, what our goal is that every member of the community is able to enjoy their pool time this summer in the safest way possible, and that's what the entire Omnify team thrives to achieve. And yeah, I think I hope I was informative. I was able to convey whatever information I've had so far. I was able to convey that in the best proper way. In case I missed out on something, please feel free to ask those in the chat, and my team is there on the chat. They will help me out with the questions, and I'll explain those to you. So from here, over to you, Shreya. You can pick it up.
Thank you, Moinak. Oh, wow, that was quite an insightful session. I hope everyone enjoyed that session and took something away from that. Now, again, as Moinak said, we're open for questions. We are going to have a question and answer round now. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask those in the chat. So, Moinak, a lot of questions have come in. So I'm going to ask you a couple of those questions. So we're getting this question quite often is, do we have a wait list feature? If we can add people to the wait list, how does that work?
Oh yes. So we actually do have a waitlist feature. So how waitlist feature works is, let's say I am a resident and I want to book into these pool slots, and every pool slot or every block of time has a capacity, right, or maximum capacity. Now let's say the capacity is full and I still want to make a reservation into that slot. So what I can do is I'll have an option to add myself to a waitlist for the slot. Now, once I've added to a waitlist, whenever there's a vacancy or someone cancels, everyone on the waitlist is sent out an auto email from the system. And this auto email basically reads out like, hey, you are trying to book into this slot. It is available now. If you're still interested, here's the link. So everyone on the waitlist, they have an equal opportunity to book into the slot, and whoever books first, they get the slot. So that's how we manage waitlist. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that answers it pretty clearly. Now, you mentioned something about auto emails. Do you want to expand a little on that? I think there were a couple of questions. I think Andrew asked the question that said, do the people who've booked in for a slot, are they notified, or do they have to manually call them up and say, hey, you have a slot coming up in an hour? How does that work?
Yeah, sure. So as you can see on my screen, Omnify has a dedicated auto email section. So we have account specific emails where there's a welcome email, there are team member communication emails, and then there are booking specific emails where there's booking confirmation, cancellation, reschedule, as well as a reminder email that goes out 24 hours prior. So for to answer Andrew's question, yes, as soon as someone books into a slot, if you enable this email, then the booking confirmation email will be sent out to them automatically. The booking confirmation email will also contain their signed copy of the waiver as well as the pre-COVID declaration form responses. So to also expand on that, the liability waiver, the signed copy of the waiver is stored on both the admin side as well as the residence side. So everyone has access to the waiver. That's something that is also a part of the booking confirmation email. And the waitlist email is also a part of these auto emails. I hope that answers your question, Andrew.
I think it does. So you spoke about waivers. So someone also had a question about the waivers. So their pool seems like they have a specific waiver that they would want their residents to sign. So can we customize our waivers?
Absolutely. So all of these waivers are customizable, as I said. And also there are some other options that you can add around the waivers. So if I go into the waivers, you can customize the text. You can have your own custom link or custom waiver added to this waiver content. Now, when it comes to, and you have an option to enforce this waiver on checkout, you have an option to enable PDF waiver and attach before booking field, which is basically the pre-COVID declaration form. So all of this can be a part of the waiver and it is customizable again.
Awesome. Okay, so there was a question by Alex. Alex asks, there are a couple of members who are repeatedly no-shows. Is there a way that they can restrict them?
Yes. So we recently launched this feature, which allows you to disable the client. So to give you more context, with Omnify, you can manage all your clients or what you call residents at one place. So I can see all the residents that have signed up with me so far. And if I go into any of the residents' profile, what I can see is I can see their entire booking history with the signed copy of the waiver. I can also see their check-in history, when what slots have they checked in at what time, the family members they've added. I can see their membership status, and what we've added is an option for you to disable the client. So in case you feel that the person has been a no-show, and basically what being a no-show multiple times means is someone else is not getting that slot. So you can actually go ahead and disable the client from here, from the client side, client portal. And what this does is this stops the client from this does not allow the client to book any more slots until you enable them again. Also, an added advantage of having this feature is, let's say someone has membership dues and you don't want them to book into slots till they clear the membership dues. So you can disable them till they actually clear the dues, and you can enable them again. And another thing, another issue that we feel that a lot of the people who used us last year, some of them actually faced, was when their residents were not able to reset their password. So in case something like this happens where the residents cannot reset the password themselves, they can reach out to the admin, and the admin can go ahead and reset their password so that residents still have access to their favorite pool slots. So that's something that you can do from the client portal.
Awesome. That was pretty well explained. So let's do one last question before we wrap this up. So there was a question from Trish, and Trish asks, do the members have to download a separate Omnify app on their phones?
Oh no! So that's the beauty of the Omnify system. No one needs to download anything. So we everything that you saw today is absolutely mobile friendly. So can be used on any mobile device. You just open your browser and you use the link. And whatever the view that you see today, right now in the webinar, can be seen on any mobile device. So it's super easy and super simple to use it on your mobile phones without downloading anything on it. Now, when it comes to mobile app, we do have a mobile app for the admins. So in case you are at the pool, checking in people, seeing the schedule for today, seeing the availability, etc., as an admin, you can download the Omnify Go app from the App Store as well as the Play Store. And that's something that your admins, or again, your pool monitors or staff can use. So that's about mobile apps.
Thank you, Moinak. I think that makes it extremely clear. Guys, if we have missed out on answering any of your questions, please feel free to write to us. The email ID is on the screen. You can reach out to us at hello@getomnify.com, and we will definitely get back to you with the answers. So I just want to thank you all once again for joining us on this webinar. It was incredible. We hope you found it as useful as I did, and I'm really looking forward to reopening pools in a safe way this year. So if you want to schedule a demo with Omnify's product specialist, you can go ahead and do so. There is a QR code that is, the QR code is here. You can go ahead, scan the QR code, and a demo will be scheduled. And I think we skipped this slide before, but hey, we want to know your feedback. We want to know what you thought of the webinar, and your feedback is only going to make us better. So we will share a feedback form with you. We will share an email with you after this webinar, where you will get the recording of the webinar as well as the feedback form. So please feel free to fill it up. Again, ask any questions if you want. Our email IDs are open for you. And with that, I think we conclude our webinar. So once again, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I hope I was of help for you. Again, scan the QR code if you want to talk to me again, and I would personally help you set up everything on my end. Looking forward to your email, Daniela.